The quiet that stayed. That night, I did not turn on the television. I left the living room lamp on, the one with the soft yellow shade, and sat in the armchair that faced the window. Outside, the street was dim and still. The maple tree across the road moved only when the wind remembered it was there. The house felt different, not new, not healed, just aware. I realized how long it had been since someone else's footsteps had moved through these rooms without belonging to memory. Daniel's presence had not filled the house, it had simply reminded it that people could still enter. I wrapped a light blanket around my shoulders and listened to the ticking clock. Time still passed. That, at least, had not changed. I stood and carried the small wooden box to the kitchen table. The key inside it was old, its metal dulled, the edges softened from years of being held. It was not labeled. I turned it over in my hand. There are objects we keep not because we need them, but because we are not ready to know what happens if we let them go. I found myself smiling at the thought, not sadly, just honestly. The next morning, my body reminded me of my age. My back ached, my knees protested, my hands were slower than they used to be. But there was something else, too. I felt awake, not in the way of urgency or excitement, in the way of being present. I made coffee and stood by the sink, watching steam rise from the mug. For years, mornings had been about endurance, getting through the quiet, waiting for the day to pass. That morning, I wondered what I might do with it. Daniel returned 2 days later. He did not knock loudly. He never did. When I opened the door, he smiled the same way he had before, as if he had not been rehearsing what to say on the walk over. "Good morning, Maggie," he said. I stepped aside and let him in. The house accepted him again. We worked more slowly this time. There was no rush. We moved from room to room, pausing often, sometimes to decide what stayed, sometimes just to rest. In the bedroom, we stood quietly for a moment before touching anything. "I can do this part alone," I said. Daniel nodded. "I'll be in the kitchen." But before he left, he added, "I'll be nearby." That mattered more than I expected. I opened drawers I had avoided for years, scarves, old watches, things that no longer knew whose they were. I placed some items into boxes. I returned others to their places. Not everything needed a decision. Some things were allowed to remain undecided. That felt like progress. Later, while Daniel worked in the garage, I sat on the edge of the bed and found myself thinking about my body. Not the way doctors think about it, not the way time thinks about it, the way I felt inside it. I had lived inside this body for 72 years. I knew its pains and its limits, but I also knew its warmth, its ability to recognize kindness, its memory of being held. I wondered, quietly, if it was foolish to think about being close to someone again. I wondered if wanting that meant I was ungrateful for the life I had already lived. The questions did not have answers, but they stayed. That afternoon, Daniel suggested a break. He said, "There's a bench down the street," he said, Under the maple, it's a good place to sit." I hesitated. I had not sat outside with someone in a long time, but I nodded. We walked slowly, side by side, our steps naturally matching without effort. No one hurried, no one lagged behind. When we reached the bench, Daniel waited for me to sit first. Another small thing, another detail my heart noticed. We did not talk much. We watched a couple walk their dog, a child ride past on a bicycle, the light change as clouds moved. "I don't come out here often," I said finally. He nodded. Neither did I for a long time. There it was again, something shared but not explained. As we walked back, I felt tired, a good tired, the kind that comes from doing something real. At my door, Daniel paused. He said, "I won't come tomorrow. I have an appointment." I felt an unexpected flicker of disappointment. "That's fine," I said. He smiled. "I'll come the day after." Not a question, a promise without weight. That night, I lay in bed, listening to the house. It no longer felt like something I had to endure. It felt like something I could live in. I thought of Daniel's hands, careful and patient. I thought of his voice, calm and unassuming. I thought of how he never seemed to ask more of me than I could give. And then I stopped myself. I reminded myself that kindness does not always lead somewhere. Sometimes it is simply kindness. I fell asleep holding that thought. The next morning, I woke earlier than usual. The light was softer. The house felt quieter, but not lonely. I walked to the window and looked outside. The street was still. The maple tree stood where it always had, but something felt different. I felt different. I did not know what would happen next. I did not know if Daniel and I would become more than neighbors who sorted boxes together. I did not know if my heart was ready for anything beyond this quiet beginning. But I knew one thing. I had opened the door, and that was enough for now. I made myself a cup of tea and sat at the kitchen table. The wooden box with the key sat beside me. I picked it up one last time and opened it. The key gleamed softly in the morning light. I did not know what it unlocked, but I was no longer afraid to find out. I placed the key in my pocket. Then I stood, walked to the door, and opened it wide. The air outside was cool and fresh. I stepped on the porch and looked down the street. 2 houses down, I saw a man walking toward me. Daniel. He was carrying a thermos and 2 cups. When he reached my house, he smiled. "Good morning, Maggie," he said. "I thought we could have coffee before we start." I smiled back. I'd like that. And so we did. We sat on the porch, drinking coffee, saying very little, watching the world slowly wake up around us. It was not grand, it was not dramatic, but it was real. And for the first time in years, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Not behind, not ahead, just here, with him, in this quiet, gentle beginning.